If you've been having marriage problems, if you are in a situation where your marriage is failing and you're headed towards disaster and probably even divorce, God forbid, if you've been constantly arguing and shouting and have constant angry outbursts, or maybe you have locked down and there is a silent treatment, either your spouse is giving you the silent treatment or you're giving him or her the silent treatment, or you're both in your own worlds like ship passing in the night, where there is constant perhaps criticism or abuse, and God forbid domestic violence might be involved. Or maybe you're in a situation where you're being betrayed, where there is infidelity and cheating. I understand that you are feeling hurt. You might have been damaged by the things that have been said by your spouse or partner. They might have said things that really have torn your heart to threads. Your soul is weeping, and the situation in your marriage is dire. If that is happening with you and you're feeling hopeless, I want to suggest to you that even when you think there is no hope, you need to rethink again. My name is Hilton Samuel, and I do help people in damaged, conflicted relationship to restore the love that they once had and avoid disaster and divorce. And if you need help, please click the button someplace on this page, fill out a simple form, pick a date and a time on the calendar that you would be shown, and let us get together for a free Save Your Marriage Strategy session where we would develop a plan to stop the hurting and restore the love. If you're anything like Isaac, who found out recently that his wife has been cheating on him for over a year, he said to me that his world is actually turned upside down. He cannot concentrate on work. He can't sleep, and there are thoughts that are constantly surfacing in his mind that is literally threatening his mental stability. He doesn't eat much anymore. His spirituality is nil. In fact, he constantly asks God, why me? Why me? I've been trying so hard to work for my family, my wife and my children, to provide for them. Why does this have to happen to me? He's not functioning efficiently anymore. Perhaps you feel the same way. I want to share with you a couple of ideas that could help you today, right now, maybe tomorrow. But before I share those solutions and those ideas with you, I want to talk to you briefly about certain concepts that many people have that are counterproductive. And if you do not revisit these concepts and ideas and paradigm and change your perspective on them, you would find it a lot more difficult to resolve the current situation that you have. And here are they. For one, many people think that they're in a bad marriage, and you might think that your marriage is terrible and horrible. The feelings and the results of what your spouse is doing to you is painful, to say the least. But I just want to give you a slight shift in perspective. There is no such thing as a bad marriage. In fact, there are only marriages where people treat each other badly. Let me explain. Right now, your spouse or you might be telling each other or doing things to each other or exchanging heated words with each other that hurt each other terribly, that cuts deeply in the heart and soul. You might be feeling hurt. Your spouse might be doing something that embarrasses you, that shames you, that hurts you, that make you feel guilty. And sometimes, many times, you are triggered by the things he or she has said or done, and you respond in kind. And there is a constant battle back and forth. Or maybe you have shut down and you have flung up an invisible wall just to guard your tender heart. These feelings, these actions, these things, these words are the things that you want shelter from. You want to shield yourself from, you want to get away from. Marriages where people love each other, soothe each other, esteem each other, elevate each other, say nice things to each other, validate each other, compliment each other, support each other. These marriages are marriages where people want to be together. So I want you to understand that clearly, because this is pivotal in helping to turn the relationship around. The next thing that I want to briefly bring to your attention is something that most people agree on. Most people will tell you that communication is the heartbeat of relationship. It's the most important thing in a relationship. And hence they would say, speak about your problems. Talk your problems through. In fact, if you go to a therapist, a counselor, a couples therapist, or a couples counselor, they would focus on talking about the problems that you have. And while this may have some cathartic value, while this may ease your pain, what we learn or what we know now is the fact that what you focus on, if you focus on the problems, if you focus on the issues, if you focus on the things that are happening that are terrible in your marriage, guess what? Those things will grow and develop. They say where attention goes, energy flows. That's a quote that I got from my friend. The point that I'm trying to make here is you cannot focus on bad problems to restore a good relationship. To restore a good relationship, you need to focus on things that would repair, would revitalize, would regenerate good emotions and feelings and provide an environment. I'm going to talk and explore this a little bit more as we go into a couple of things that you could do and you should do. In the meanwhile, if you really want support and help, I encourage you sincerely to click on that button below and select, just answer a few questions and select a date and time that is convenient to you, and let us talk. Let us explore what is transpiring, what is going on in your relationship, and see if we can come up with a plan that would move you from the hell house of conflict into the open, beautiful feel of relating wonderfully and restoring the love that you so greatly deserve. So you might be asking yourself the $1 million question, the £64,000 question. If I don't talk about my problems, if I don't deal with my issues, what should I do? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked because I have some ideas that I would like to share with you. And I've categorized them into 3 different categories. 3 Ds. Decide, discover, and damage repair. Let's just take our time and briefly go through these 3 Ds for restoring, revitalizing, regenerating love in your relationship. So we will start with the first one, decide. If you're in a conflicted marriage, if your marriage is headed towards divorce, I want to suggest to you that you decide whether or not your marriage or relationship is savable. Is it salvageable? I want to say to you that not all marriages can be restored. Not all marriages can be saved. There are some marriages that simply would dissolve because of the nature of what is happening within those marriages. There are also some marriages that should not have happened in the first place. But while I'm saying that, there is the concept that we understand that the vast amount of marriages that are in disrepair, that are dysfunctional simply because the parties involved are not in knowledge of the correct skills and strategies that they can use to restore the marriage. Over 90% of them. So Decide whether or not your marriage is savable or salvageable. The second thing you need to do is to decide to stop hurting each other. The third thing you need to do is to decide what is best for you. What is best for you? But not just what is best for you. What is best for your spouse? And if children are involved, what would be best for your children? And what would be the best thing for your marriage, for your family? I can't exactly tell you what would be the best thing for all of you, for all parties concerned, because I don't know the details of what is transpiring. But you should decide that. And if you need help, please again hit the button, select a date and time that's convenient for you, and we will do a strategy session and help you to develop a plan as to what to do and how to take things forward from here. The last thing you need to decide is really, do you really want to put the time and effort into saving your marriage? Do you, honest to goodness, really want to do that? Because it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take dedication. Having decided all of these, we go to the second D, which is to discover. I want you to discover the root causes of your issues. And I'm not talking about the arguments you have. I'm not talking about the tiff that you engage in. I'm not talking about maybe money and sex and how you put the toilet paper or squeeze the toothpaste tube. These are only symptoms of deep-rooted issues that you have. They are like the cold and flu symptoms that people have, which indicates there's something that is wrong within the body. And most times it is unmet needs. More on that a little bit later. Unmet need. So you need to discover what are the deep needs that you have, that your spouse has, that you need to look towards dealing with, and not necessarily the surface battles that you have. The second thing you need to truly discover is how to really love. You know, many people think they know how to love. They go into relationship thinking that they're masters of this. And, you know, because they're giddy-headed and because the emotions of love are floating in their head and brain and body, they assume that they know all there is to know about loving and relating. Unfortunately, many people, the vast majority of us, have never been schooled and educated about the dynamics of love or the skills and strategies that are involved. Many people have been schooled in how to become a doctor, a carpenter, a nurse, how to become a mechanic, how to become a pilot. But when it comes to relationship, there isn't a subject on the curriculum in our high school or colleges, not even at our universities, that deal with this. And so many people naively get into a relationship, and when after the feelings fade, when they come back from the moon and land safely back on earth and they begin to live together, they find that it's not as rosy as they thought it was. They begin to see things that they never saw before and notice things that they never noticed before, and become annoyed at little things that never annoyed them before. And hence all hell is set loose when they realize the person that they got married to, that they didn't actually fully know that person. So what are some of the things that we need to know to truly love? There are three things here. You need to know the love language, you need to know the emotional needs, your emotional needs and your spouse's emotional needs, and you need to know the love style. The love style and the and the love language are slightly similar, although there are some differences. Your love language is simply the way you perceive and interpret love. And that is primarily dictated by the way you have been brought up and the way you saw people during your childhood relate to each other. And that gives you an imprint, a template in your head of what love looks like, or a perception of what love should look like. And because you develop this, what we call this love language and this love style, you bring it into your relating and relationship with the person that you got married to, not realizing or assuming that the person fully understands your love language or your love style. And that assumed assumption is really the foundation of many conflicts. So you need to discover not only just what your love style, and love language is, but you need to understand what the love language of your spouse is. Because you could be like an Englishman trying to speak to a Chinese who don't understand English, and you don't understand Chinese. The next thing that you need to be clear about is your emotional needs. Now, your emotions are what drives you, that governs you. And your emotions are to your existence what the dashboard is to the car that you drive. Because your dashboard gives an indication of what is transpiring in the engine of the car. Just recently, my wife was coming home. It was raining, it was cold and dark, and she was calling me on the phone, and she said, you know, there is a light on the dashboard. I don't fully understand what the light means. And as she was speaking to me, she said, oh, many other lights are coming on, and she panicked. The steering wheel started to seize up. Fortunately, she was able to guide it off the road and into a bus stop. And as she did that, the engine shut down. Well, we had to call out the rescue team, or the people who rescue cars. They brought it home, and eventually a mechanic sorted it out. Cost us a pretty penny, but thankfully it was back on the road in a week or two. The point I'm making is that your emotions tell you what is transpiring in your body, in your soul, in the engine of love. So basically, if you don't understand what your emotional needs are, you're going to be in serious trouble. If you don't understand what your if you don't understand what the emotional needs of your spouse are, then again, you will be like a blind man trying to catch a black cat in a dark room that isn't there. It's going to be pandemonium. And, you know, you're going to be constantly at each other, because you would be shooting shots and scattering darts and not hitting the bullseye target. The next thing you need to do is to develop clear boundaries. Discover what your boundaries are. Discover what you will tolerate and not tolerate. Discover what your deal breakers are and communicate them clearly to your spouse. Now, you might be saying, oh no, I can't really do that, because if I do that, they would hate me more. Sorry, but the truth is, because you haven't actually declared or clarified many of your boundaries, your spouse walk all over you and say things and do things that they shouldn't say and do, simply because they have not been given any guidance of what they should and shouldn't do, or the areas that they should not go. For example, maybe one of the things you need to decide that you don't want anybody shouting at you, and definitely you don't want anybody hitting you. That's a no-go area. So once you develop clear boundaries, initially maybe your spouse would be upset about them. They would try to test those boundaries and borders like young teenage children. But however, if you are gentle and firm, you will find that ultimately they will acquiesce to the boundaries and the borders that you set up, and they would even respect you more. And finally, I want to talk to you about repairing the damage that has been done. If you have been in conflict for any length of time, I could guarantee you that both of you have inflicted some serious blows on each other. I mean, emotional blows. You have said things that have torn the heart of your spouse to threads. And they may have done and said things that have demolished you. The pain, the anguish, the agony, you may not have words to describe. Now, those pains, those wounds that have been inflicted on each other need to be healed, need to be dressed, need to be soothed, and you need to heal them, because you cannot move on and build a good relationship on broken heart. The heart needs to be addressed and sorted out. And how do you go about doing that? Of course, there's reconciliation. There needs to be forgiveness and reconciliation. You need the repair process, which we will provide you once you select the button and click the date and a time when we can sit with you and explore what is transpiring in your relationship and give you some guidance as to how and where to move forward. You need also to feed your love hunger, because I believe that when people are fighting, they don't have enough time to feed each other, to nurture each other, to be kind to each other, to show love to each other. And that means that you would be starved of these elements. I call them emotional needs. So you need to find a way of planting and feeding that love and giving that attention to your spouse. And he or she also need to be able to minister to your needs, your starving, hungry soul. And finally, it is important that you develop what we call emotional regulation, managing your emotions, because I suspect that all along you are pressing each other hot buttons. You are triggering each other. You get flooded and fly off the hook. And you say and do things that later on you're either surprised at or you're sorry that you did. And so managing your emotions, regulating your emotions, especially when you get triggered, and there is no one else on earth that knows how to get under your skin and press those buttons that send off all kinds of triggers in your body that makes you see red than your spouse. And it is important that you learn how to regulate your emotions, how to bring yourself down from a flooded state, how to hold back, how to step away and walk away if it is necessary, to cool down before you answer. And that is very significant. And if you can do all of these things or many of these things, that would give you a fighting chance of restoring and regenerating and revitalizing the love that you once had. Again, if you need some help to do any and all of this, please click that button and let us help you with your situation. Once you click the button, you'll be taken to a page where you will be asked a few questions, and once you answer those questions, you will be given a chance to select a date and a time that is convenient to you, where we can help you to start regenerating, restoring the love that you once had. So go ahead, click the button, answer the questions, and let us help you to restore the love you deserve. I am waiting.